In the wake of a shocking revelation, the Queen and Kale faced a truth that defied logic. Kale was not merely a guard who resembled her late husband. He was her husband, reborn across centuries. This discovery came at a devastating cost when a rebel leader used an ancient relic to force the Queen to confront this reality. Amidst chaos and betrayal on a war-torn planet, the Queen was gravely injured while protecting Kale, further solidifying their unbreakable bond. Returning to the palace, she addressed her advisors, refusing to deny the truth of their connection despite the political fallout. Together, they vowed to uncover the secrets behind Kale's return and the mysterious relic, even as uncertainty loomed over their future. And so, we continue. The palace hummed with quiet tension in the days following the Queen's address to her council. While outwardly the empire maintained its facade of stability, beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. Whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire among distant star systems, fueled by the enigmatic events on the troubled planet. Some hailed the Queen's declaration as proof of divine favor, while others saw it as evidence of weakness, a ruler undone by sentiment. Yet, through it all, the Queen remained resolute, her focus unwavering as she prepared to unravel the mysteries surrounding Kale's resurrection. Kale, for his part, struggled to reconcile the fragments of two lives now colliding within him. Memories from his past existence surfaced unpredictably, flashes of battles fought, vows exchanged, and moments shared with the woman who now stood beside him once more. Each memory brought both clarity and confusion, leaving him torn between the man he had become and the person he had once been. He spent hours alone in the palace archives, poring over ancient texts and records in search of answers, though the weight of his dual identity pressed heavily upon him. One evening, as twilight bathed the throne room in hues of gold and crimson, the Queen joined him there. She found him standing before a massive holographic map of the empire, his brow furrowed in thought. "You've been avoiding me," she said softly, her voice tinged with concern. Kale turned to face her, guilt flickering across his features. "No," he replied, shaking his head. "I just needed time to think, to understand." She stepped closer, her gaze searching his face. "Do you regret it? Knowing the truth?" He hesitated, his fingers brushing against the edge of the map. "It's not regret," he admitted finally. "It's fear. Fear of losing myself again, or worse, losing you." Her expression softened, and she reached out to take his hand. "You won't lose me," she promised, her voice steady despite the storm brewing in her eyes. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." Their moment of connection was interrupted by the arrival of one of the Queen's most trusted advisors, a wiry figure named Valen, whose sharp intellect had often guided her through crises. He entered the chamber cautiously, his usual composure tempered by unease. "Your Majesty," he began, bowing deeply. "We've uncovered something troubling." The Queen straightened, her regal bearing returning instantly. "Speak." Valen hesitated, glancing briefly at Kale before continuing. "Intelligence reports suggest that the rebel leader, the one who wielded the relic, is amassing support. Entire sectors are rallying to his cause, claiming that your attachment to Kale proves your rule is compromised. Worse still," he paused, swallowing hard. "There are rumors of other relics, scattered throughout the empire. Artifacts capable of manipulating time and memory." The implications hung heavy in the air. If these relics existed, and if others sought to use them, it could mean far greater dangers than mere rebellion. The Queen exchanged a glance with Kale, seeing the same realization reflected in his eyes. This was no longer about politics or power. It was about survival. "Gather what forces we can trust," she commanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. "We leave at dawn. These relics must be found before they fall into enemy hands." As preparations were made, the Queen and Kale retreated to her private chambers, where they spoke in hushed tones about the journey ahead. "If these artifacts truly exist," Kale said, his voice low and urgent, "they could hold the key to understanding why I'm here. Why I came back. And why now?" the Queen added, her gaze distant. "But we must tread carefully. Whoever controls those relics holds unimaginable power." The following morning, their ship departed under the cover of darkness, its destination shrouded in secrecy. Their first lead took them to an ancient temple hidden deep within the asteroid belt, a place long abandoned, its walls etched with runes that pulsed faintly with energy. As they ventured inside, the air grew colder, heavier, as if the very stones remembered the tragedies they had witnessed. At the heart of the temple lay another relic, identical to the one that had revealed Kale's true identity. But this one was incomplete, its glow dimmed as though drained of power. The queen approached it cautiously, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch its surface. Instantly, visions flooded her mind, images of a civilization long extinct, destroyed by their own hubris in wielding such forbidden knowledge. Among the ruins, she saw glimpses of herself and Kale, bound together across lifetimes, caught in a cycle of love and loss that spanned millennia. When she pulled away, tears streamed down her face. Kale rushed to her side, steadying her as she struggled to find words. "What did you see?" he asked, his voice filled with dread. "The truth," she whispered, her voice breaking. "This isn't the first time we've been brought back to each other. And it won't be the last." Before either could process the enormity of her revelation, the ground beneath them trembled violently. From the shadows emerged figures clad in dark armor, their leader none other than the rebel who had orchestrated the attack on the planet. His smirk was cruel, triumphant. "Did you really think I'd let you claim the relics for yourselves?" he sneered. "This ends here." With nowhere left to run, the queen and Kale stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to fight, not just for their lives, but for the fragile hope of breaking free from the endless cycle that had ensnared them. As the battle erupted around them, one thing became clear. The relics were not gifts, they were tests. And only by facing the truths they revealed could the queen and Kale hope to rewrite their destiny. The clash within the ancient temple was swift and brutal, a storm of clashing steel and searing energy that illuminated the shadowy ruins in bursts of light. The rebel forces moved with precision, their dark armor blending seamlessly with the dimness of the cavernous space. They wielded weapons forged from technology far beyond what the Queen's empire had ever seen, weapons powered by fragments of the same relics they sought to control. Each strike sent shockwaves rippling through the air, shaking loose dust and debris from the crumbling walls. Kale fought with a ferocity born of desperation, his spear flashing like lightning as he carved a path toward the rebel leader. Memories of battles long past surged unbidden into his mind, sharpening his instincts and guiding his movements. He was no longer just a guard or even a man caught between two lives. He was a warrior, driven by centuries of experience buried deep within his soul. Yet, for all his skill, he could feel the weight of the odds stacked against them. The rebels were too many, their resolve hardened by hatred and ambition. Beside him, the queen unleashed her own power, her abilities manifesting in bursts of crystalline energy that froze enemies mid-attack. Her movements were fluid yet deliberate, each gesture carrying the weight of someone who had spent lifetimes mastering her craft. But even she could not hold back the tide indefinitely. With every step forward, the enemy pressed closer, their numbers seemingly endless. "Fall back!" Kale shouted, grabbing the queen's arm as a volley of energy bolts narrowly missed them. "We can't win this fight." She hesitated, her gaze locked on the rebel leader, who stood smirking atop a raised dais at the center of the chamber. His hand rested casually on the partially drained relic, its faint glow pulsing in time with his laughter. "You think running will save you?" he taunted, his voice echoing through the temple. "This is bigger than both of you. The cycle cannot be broken, not by love, not by sacrifice. You'll see that soon enough." The queen's jaw tightened, her eyes blazing with defiance. "He's trying to stall us," she muttered under her breath, turning to Kale. "If we don't destroy that relic now, he'll use it to tear the empire apart." Kale nodded grimly, understanding the stakes. Together, they launched a coordinated assault, carving through the rebel ranks with renewed determination. The queen created barriers of ice to slow their pursuers, while Kale used his agility to outmaneuver those who tried to flank them. Their synergy was seamless, as though they had fought side by side for lifetimes, which perhaps they had. As they reached the dais, the rebel leader stepped forward, drawing a blade that shimmered with an otherworldly light. "You should have stayed away," he snarled, lunging at Kale with unnatural speed. The two clashed, their weapons sparking as they exchanged blows. Despite Kale's skill, the rebel's strength seemed augmented by the relic's power, forcing him to give ground. Seeing her chance, the queen focused her energy on the artifact itself, channeling everything she had into destabilizing its core. The relic began to hum violently, its glow intensifying until it cast jagged shadows across the chamber. "Get clear!" she yelled, her voice barely audible over the deafening roar. Kale disengaged from the rebel leader just as the relic erupted in a blinding explosion of light and energy. The force of the blast threw everyone backward, collapsing parts of the temple and burying the remaining rebels beneath tons of rubble. When the dust settled, silence fell heavy over the ruins, broken only by the sound of labored breathing. The queen lay sprawled near the edge of the dais, her body battered but alive. Kale crawled to her side, his face etched with concern. "Are you hurt?" he asked, helping her sit up. She shook her head weakly, wincing as she surveyed the destruction around them. "No, I'm fine. But the relic, it's gone." Kale followed her gaze to the shattered remains of the artifact, its once pulsing light now extinguished. "Do you think that's the end of it?" he asked cautiously. Before she could answer, a low chuckle echoed through the chamber. From the shadows emerged the rebel leader, bloodied but unbowed. In his hand, he held a small, glowing shard, the last fragment of the relic. "Foolish," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "Did you really think destroying one relic would stop me? There are others, scattered across the stars. And I will find them, all of them." With that, he activated a device on his wrist, vanishing in a flash of light before either could react. The queen slumped against Kale, exhaustion overtaking her. "We can't let him keep searching," she murmured, her voice trembling with urgency. "If he finds the other relics." "I know," Kale interrupted gently, his arms tightening around her. "But we'll stop him. Together." Back aboard their ship, the queen and Kale regrouped, piecing together what little information they had about the remaining relics. Intelligence reports suggested there were 3 more, each hidden in locations steeped in myth and danger. One was said to reside in the heart of a dying star, another in the depths of an ocean world shrouded in perpetual darkness, and the third, lost entirely, its location known only to those who dared decipher cryptic prophecies. As they plotted their next move, the queen found herself drawn to the visions she had experienced in the temple. The images of herself and Kale, bound across lifetimes, haunted her thoughts. "What if the rebel is right?" she asked quietly one night, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. "What if the cycle truly can't be broken?" Kale joined her at the viewport, his presence steadying. "Then we'll break it anyway," he said firmly. "We've faced impossible odds before, and we'll do it again. Whatever happens, we're in this together." Her lips curved into a faint smile, gratitude shining in her eyes. "You always know what to say." "Not always," he admitted with a rueful grin. "But I know this, I won't lose you again. Not after finding you twice." Their journey ahead promised untold dangers, but as they set course for the first relic's location, they did so with unwavering resolve. The universe had tested them time and again, weaving their fates into a tapestry of love, loss, and redemption. And though the relics held the power to reshape reality itself, the Queen and Kale knew that true strength lay not in artifacts or armies, but in the unbreakable bond they shared. For better or worse, their story was far from over. Across galaxies and lifetimes, they would continue to fight, not just for survival, but for the hope of a future where love triumphed over fate. The ship soared through the void, its sleek form cutting through the cosmic winds as it raced toward the coordinates of the first relic. The dying star loomed ahead, a massive orb of crimson and gold that pulsed with an eerie, rhythmic light. Its surface churned violently, ejecting streams of plasma into the surrounding space like fiery tendrils reaching out to ensnare unwary travelers. To approach such a celestial behemoth was madness, but then again, madness had always been part of their story. Inside the vessel, tension hung thick in the air. The Queen sat at the command console, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she monitored the ship systems. Her face was pale but determined, the weight of their mission etched into every line of her expression. Beside her, Kale stood watchful, his eyes scanning the viewport for any sign of danger. He had donned his armor once more, its polished surface gleaming faintly under the dim red lights of the cockpit. Though neither spoke, the silence between them was charged with unspoken fears and hopes. "We're entering the star's gravitational field," the Queen announced finally, her voice steady despite the storm brewing within her. "Prepare for turbulence." Cale nodded, gripping the edge of the console as the ship shuddered violently. Outside, the star's fury intensified, its corona flaring with blinding brilliance. Alarms blared intermittently, warning of rising temperatures and structural stress, but the Queen ignored them, her focus absolute. She guided the ship closer, navigating through the chaos with precision honed by centuries of experience. Or perhaps something deeper, something instinctual. As they breached the outer layers of the star's atmosphere, the ship's sensors detected a faint anomaly, a pocket of stability amidst the inferno. Within it lay the relic, suspended in a bubble of energy that defied the laws of physics. The sight filled them both with awe and dread. It was beautiful, yes, but also alien, otherworldly. The relic pulsed with a soft, golden light, its surface inscribed with runes that shifted and shimmered like liquid fire. "This is it," Cale murmured, his voice tinged with reverence. "But how do we even get close to it?" The Queen hesitated, her gaze fixed on the artifact. "We'll have to use the extraction pod," she said finally, her tone resolute. "It's shielded against extreme conditions. If anyone can retrieve it, I can." "No," Cale countered immediately, stepping forward. "You're injured. Let me go." She turned to him sharply, her eyes blazing. "And risk losing you again? I won't allow it." "It's not about risking me, it's about what needs to be done," he replied firmly, his own voice rising to match hers. "You're the strategist, the leader. You need to stay safe so you can guide us through whatever comes next. Trust me, I've faced worse." For a moment, they stared at each other, the clash of wills crackling between them like static electricity. Then, slowly, the Queen relented, her shoulders sagging slightly as she exhaled. "Be careful," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "Please." Cale nodded, placing a hand briefly over hers before turning away. He suited up quickly, strapping on a specialized environmental suit designed to withstand the star's infernal heat. As he stepped into the extraction pod, the Queen watched from the cockpit, her heart pounding in her chest. The pod detached from the main ship with a soft hiss, descending into the maelstrom below. The descent was harrowing. Streams of plasma lashed at the pod, its shields flickering dangerously as it fought to maintain integrity. Inside, Cale gripped the controls tightly, his breathing labored beneath the confines of his helmet. Sweat dripped down his brow as he navigated the treacherous currents, inching closer to the relic with agonizing slowness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he reached it. The artifact floated serenely before him, its light casting strange patterns across the interior of the pod. Cale extended a gloved hand, his fingers trembling as they brushed against its surface. Instantly, visions flooded his mind, images of creation and destruction, of civilizations rising and falling, of love enduring through eons. He saw himself and the Queen, not just in this life or the last, but in countless iterations, bound together by threads of fate that spanned galaxies and millennia. And then, abruptly, the visions stopped. The relic dimmed, its glow fading as if acknowledging his presence. With great care, Cale secured it within a containment unit, sealing it off from the hostile environment outside. "I've got it," he transmitted back to the ship, his voice shaky but triumphant. "Pull me up." The Queen exhaled sharply, relief washing over her as she initiated the retrieval sequence. Moments later, the pod reattached to the ship, and Cale emerged, battered but alive. The Queen rushed to him, pulling him into a fierce embrace that left no room for words. They held each other tightly, drawing strength from the knowledge that they had succeeded, but only for now. Back aboard the ship, they examined the relic more closely, its runes shifting subtly as if responding to their proximity. "What does it mean?" Cale asked, tracing one of the symbols with his finger. "Why are these things tied to us?" The Queen shook her head, her expression somber. "I don't know yet. But I think they're fragments of something greater. Pieces of a puzzle meant to reveal the truth about why we keep coming back." Before either could delve deeper into the mystery, alarms blared once more. On the scanners, a fleet of ships appeared on the horizon. Rebels, led by the same man who had haunted their steps since the beginning. His voice crackled over the comms, cold and mocking. "Did you really think I'd let you escape with another piece of my prize? Surrender now, or burn with your precious relic." The queen clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. "Not today," she muttered, powering up the ship's engines. Turning to Kale, she added, "Hold on tight. This is going to get rough." With that, she launched the ship into evasive maneuvers, weaving through the star's deadly embrace as enemy fire rained down around them. Plasma bolts streaked past, narrowly missing the hull as the queen pushed the vessel to its limits. Kale manned the secondary controls, deploying countermeasures and targeting critical points on the rebel ships. Together, they fought with a synchronicity born of trust and desperation, their bond shining brighter than ever amidst the chaos. Finally, with a daring gambit, the Queen executed a high-speed slingshot maneuver around the star's core, using its gravity to catapult them clear of the battle. The rebel fleet faltered, unable to match their speed, and soon fell behind, swallowed by the inferno they had dared to challenge. As the stars returned to view, the ship coasted into safer territory, its occupants battered but victorious. The Queen collapsed into her seat, exhaustion overtaking her, while Kale tended to minor injuries sustained during the skirmish. Neither spoke for a long while, content simply to bask in the quiet aftermath of survival. Eventually, the Queen broke the silence. "We can't keep running like this," she said softly, her gaze distant. "Sooner or later, we'll have to confront him, and whatever lies at the end of this journey." Kale nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "Then let's make sure we're ready. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." And so, with the second relic secured and two more still waiting to be found, they set course for the next destination. The universe stretched endlessly before them, vast and unknowable, yet somehow smaller now that they had each other. Across lifetimes and galaxies, through trials and triumphs, their story continued, a testament to the power of love to transcend even the boundaries of time itself. The journey to the second relic took them deep into the uncharted reaches of the galaxy, where stars burned cold and planets floated like ghostly apparitions in the endless void. Their destination was an ocean world shrouded in perpetual darkness, its surface a churning expanse of liquid obsidian that reflected no light. It was said to be a place untouched by time itself, a realm where ancient secrets slumbered beneath crushing depths. As their ship descended through the planet's thick atmosphere, a haze of swirling gases and suspended particles, the air inside grew heavy with anticipation. Kale stood at the viewport, his breath fogging the glass as he stared out at the alien seascape below. The waves were unnaturally still, their surfaces smooth as mirrors despite the violent storms raging above. Lightning crackled across the sky, illuminating jagged cliffs that jutted from the water like broken teeth. "It feels wrong," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. "Like we're trespassing somewhere we don't belong." The Queen joined him, her presence steady but tinged with unease. She carried the containment unit holding the first relic, its faint glow casting eerie shadows across her face. "This place is older than anything we've encountered so far," she said softly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Older even than the relics themselves. Whatever lies beneath those waters, it doesn't want us here." Her words sent a chill down Kale's spine, though he nodded grimly. "Then let's make this quick." They landed on one of the larger islands, a barren rock formation battered by relentless winds and lashed by rain. The ground was slick with moisture, every step treacherous as they made their way toward the coordinates indicated by their scanners. According to legend, the second relic lay hidden within a submerged temple buried miles below the surface, a structure built not by hands, but by forces beyond comprehension. To reach it, they would need to dive into the abyss. The thought alone filled both of them with dread. The pressure at such depths would crush ordinary equipment, and ordinary beings, in moments. But necessity left them no choice. They suited up in advanced diving gear designed for extreme conditions, each piece reinforced with materials capable of withstanding the crushing weight of the ocean above. Even then, neither could shake the feeling that they were walking straight into the maw of something ancient and malevolent. As they entered the water, the temperature plummeted instantly, biting through their suits despite the insulation. The descent began slowly, guided by luminous markers released from their equipment. Around them, the darkness closed in like a living thing, swallowing the faint light emitted by their headlamps. Strange shapes drifted past, bioluminescent creatures with translucent bodies and too many eyes, watching silently as if guarding the secrets of the deep. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the silence became. There were no sounds save for the rhythmic hiss of their breathing apparatuses and the occasional creak of their suits under the mounting pressure. Yet, beneath the silence, there was something else, a low, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the very water itself. It vibrated through their bones, setting their teeth on edge and filling their minds with fragmented images, shadowy figures moving in the dark, whispers in languages long forgotten, and glimpses of a vast, glowing entity lying dormant in the depths. "The temple should be just ahead," the queen said finally, her voice strained against the growing tension. Her scanner displayed a faint outline of massive stone structures rising from the seabed, their surfaces etched with the same shifting runes that adorned the relics. The sight filled them with equal parts awe and terror. It was unmistakably artificial, yet utterly alien. They approached cautiously, their lights revealing intricate carvings that depicted scenes of creation and destruction. At the center of the temple stood the relic, encased in a crystalline dome that pulsed with a soft blue light. Unlike the previous artifact, this one radiated a sense of calm, almost inviting them closer. But as Kale reached out to touch the dome, the queen grabbed his arm, halting him. "Wait," she whispered, her eyes narrowing. Something about the scene felt off. Too perfect, too serene. As if the relic wanted them to take it. Before either could act, the water around them erupted in chaos. Massive tentacles shot upward from the abyss, wrapping around the temple with impossible speed. The creature attached to them was unlike anything they had ever seen, a leviathan of unimaginable size, its body covered in shimmering scales that refracted the dim light into dazzling patterns. Its single, cyclopean eye glowed with an intelligence that chilled them to their cores. "It's protecting the relic," Kale shouted, struggling to keep his footing as the current intensified. The queen nodded, already pulling a device from her belt, a sonic disruptor designed to incapacitate hostile wildlife. She activated it, sending waves of high-frequency sound rippling through the water. The Leviathan recoiled momentarily, its grip loosening just enough for them to dart forward. Working together, they managed to pry open the crystalline dome and retrieve the relic. As soon as it was free, the Leviathan let out a deafening roar that reverberated through the water, shaking the entire temple. The structure began to collapse, chunks of stone tumbling into the abyss as the creature thrashed violently. "We need to move now," the queen yelled, grabbing Kale's arm and propelling them toward the surface. Behind them, the ruins crumbled entirely, swallowed by the hungry depths as the Leviathan retreated into the shadows. Their ascent was a blur of adrenaline and sheer willpower, fighting against the pull of the collapsing temple and the relentless pressure bearing down on them. When they finally broke the surface, gasping for air amidst the storm-tossed waves, exhaustion overwhelmed them. They clung to each other, the relic clutched tightly between them, as their ship descended to retrieve them. Back aboard, they collapsed onto the floor of the cockpit, their bodies trembling with fatigue. For a long while, neither spoke, content simply to breathe and process what they had endured. Finally, the queen turned to Kale, her expression a mixture of gratitude and resolve. "That thing," she began, her voice hoarse. "It wasn't just guarding the relic. It was testing us, seeing if we were worthy." Kale nodded slowly, his mind replaying the encounter. "And now, what happens when we find the last one?" She didn't answer immediately, her gaze drifting toward the containment units holding the relics. Their combined glow illuminated the cabin, casting strange patterns on the walls. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "But whatever it is, we'll face it together." As the ship lifted off, leaving the darkened ocean world behind, they set course for the final relic, the most elusive of all. Somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, lay the key to unraveling the mysteries of their intertwined fates. And waiting for them, no doubt, was the rebel leader, whose motives remained as enigmatic as the artifacts themselves. The end of their journey was near, but whether it would bring salvation or ruin, neither could say. All they knew was that love had brought them this far, and love would carry them through whatever came next. The final leg of their journey took them to the edge of known space, where the stars grew sparse and the void stretched endlessly in every direction. The coordinates led them to a barren moon orbiting a collapsed star, its surface pockmarked with craters and bathed in perpetual twilight. It was here, according to cryptic prophecies etched into ancient texts, that the last relic lay hidden, guarded not by beasts or storms, but by riddles woven into the fabric of time itself. As they stepped onto the desolate landscape, the air thick with an unnatural stillness, the Queen and Kale felt the weight of countless lifetimes pressing down upon them. The runes on the relics they carried pulsed faintly, as if sensing their proximity to their counterpart. Guided by the artifact's resonance, they ventured into a cavernous chasm at the moon's heart, its walls lined with glyphs that shimmered like trapped starlight. At the center of the chamber stood the final relic, suspended within a sphere of liquid light that defied gravity. But as they approached, the ground beneath them shifted, and the chamber transformed into a labyrinth of shifting pathways and illusions. Each step forced them to confront fragments of their past lives. Moments of joy, sorrow, betrayal, and triumph, all designed to test their resolve. "You must choose," a voice echoed, deep and resonant, filling the cavern. "Which life will you claim? Which love will you sacrifice?" The Queen hesitated, her hand trembling as visions of Kale in different forms flashed before her eyes. He knelt beside her, his expression resolute despite the turmoil within him. "We don't have to choose," he said firmly. "This isn't about one life, it's about all of them. Together." Their unity shattered the illusion, revealing the true form of the Guardian, a spectral figure cloaked in shadow, its presence both menacing and sorrowful. "You defy fate," it intoned, its gaze piercing. "But defiance comes at a cost." With no other option, the Queen extended her hand toward the relic, her touch igniting a cascade of light that engulfed the chamber. Memories flooded back, not just theirs, but those of everyone who had ever lived, loved, and lost. They saw the cycle for what it truly was, a cosmic balance, maintained by their bond across lifetimes. When the light faded, the relics had merged into a single artifact, its glow steady and serene. The Guardian bowed low, dissolving into mist. "The cycle is broken," it whispered before vanishing entirely. Back aboard their ship, they held each other tightly, the artifact resting between them. For the first time, they felt free, not bound by destiny, but united by choice. The rebel leader awaited them, but now, they faced him not as pawns of fate, but as masters of their own story. As they set course for the final confrontation, the Queen turned to Kale, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Whatever happens next," she said softly, "we've already won." Kale smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Because we're together." And so, under the watchful gaze of dying stars, they prepared to face the end, not with fear, but with hope. Their love had transcended time, rewritten fate, and forged a future brighter than any prophecy could predict. In the vastness of the universe, they had found something eternal, a bond unbroken by death, distance, or despair. Together, they would write the final chapter of their story, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it as one.